let's be clear. The China issue is not just about Ukraine. The China issue is about China's provocations on the United States. We've got this spy tool in this, this spy balloon that was able to hover above military installations, our nuclear installations. We haven't heard a word from President Biden pushing back to China on that. And this is after China was able to unleash, accidentally or not, a virus that killed 1 million people in America and then try to cover it up. We've had no pushback whatsoever in terms of getting to the origins of COVID-19. So when you're looking at China, I don't think we could only look at China and its support of Russia, which we know is obvious, but it's even more than that. What has this administration done to that? Counter China's provocations?
Well, I've been talking to you for years about China's provocations, Maria.
That's right.
Please.
You were the first person to say we were outgunned and outmanned and that we need to invest in our military because they have a bigger Navy than we are. But I don't hear that from this administration.
Well, let's just get to the specifics right in front of us. A year ago, China was going to provide lethal aid to Russia. This administration, I give them some credit, quietly, not publicly, called them out of that, and they didn't do it. I actually applaud them calling them out publicly now. The EU has come out and said very unequivocally, the relationship with China will change if they provide lethal aid to Russia. It will be a red line for us. If China provides this lethal aid, the United States and the EU and Europe will be much more aligned than we have ever been in terms of anti-China policies. You know full well that there are countries inside of Europe that have a sweetheart relationship with China. They push back publicly on their aggressive policy and increase their economic ties. The United States should be trying to decouple some of these ties that make sense. We know we're not going to decouple the whole economy, but anything that's helping the military, anything that is helping the repression of the Chinese people, you betcha we got to be decoupling that. I think China will make a fatal mistake if they provide these lethal arms, and I think it's possible they won't because of the public reaction that's taken place. And I give the administration some credit. While I'm very critical of them on how they're dealing with Ukraine and not giving them enough to win the war, this factor, I think, is a good step to pushing back on China publicly at this time.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned companies because that's who I'm referring to, corporate America, who is funding the expansion of the CCP by investing in these companies, in all the indexes and in the thrift fund and all the rest. But of course, we know that they're not going to stop until policy changes. It starts with policy. So that's why I have to go back to this administration and point the finger in terms of the pushback on China. And the president keeps calling China a competitor. It's an adversary. I think that they've made that clear.